Well, good morning, Barrett. It is Thursday, the 15th of January in the year 2015. My goodness, so much time has kind of unraveled right in front of us, and it gives question to what the future holds. So, how are you entering into this new year of potential and possibility?
Yeah, well, it occurs to me that if it's the 15th, that means it's the Ides of January, which I know the Ides of March often have some, I don't know, like they portend something of importance or maybe some things are rumbling. And I don't know, I think that maybe there's some of that here too. For me personally, I feel like, the ego is kind of like acting a little extra thick, and it's sometimes a little challenging to remember my forgiveness lessons and to do them. Um, but that's how it goes. You know, we have our times where life can be a little bit less clear, a little bit more challenging, and I think the key to that is definitely to just be persistent and to stick with our working with our mind. You know, to keep questioning the things we're believing and giving them over to the Holy Spirit.
Exactly, and tenacity is definitely a major theme with this new year because, like with most cycles of this sort, we are trying to step out of the past and step away from all of the foolishness that we were engaged in over the last 12 months. And so hopefully we're able to more fully focus on the present moment and have that expectation of creating a sense of peace right here and now. And that will be the prevailing theme as we advance forward into the new year. One of the things that came to me as I was pondering what to chat with you about this morning was that I did, in fact, have a very interesting dream last night. And dreams and visions are very, very much a part of a lot of the rhetoric within A Course in Miracles because the Course makes us aware of the fact that the lives we have, while we imagine them to be separated and isolated and polarized and plop down here on planet Earth, in reality, it's just like what goes on in our sleep cycles when we lay down and fall asleep and dream an entire story, uh, and we are the ones who are activating all the different players within that story. So that that thread goes back to the idea there is only one mind, one person here, and in possession of one mind. And there's a challenge is to resolve the illusion of that mind being fragmented or fractured. And of course, that's where we get the conscious and the subconscious realms, and dreams and visions often carry us very deeply into these stories that we're creating about who we are. And we're hiding part of the story from ourselves in the subconscious, and then we have the immediate adventures that we're experiencing in the conscious realm. So a lot of times when you do have dreams, they are trying to get you to rectify that schism between the two aspects of the mind, the conscious and subconscious. And last night I had a dream about, an old love interest, an old flame, and when that individual showed up in the dream, there was a kind of a lackluster essence to what the interaction was. It was kind of a flat line. There was not a real depth of passion or interest even. And to me, that was somewhat meaningful in that even though I know I'm working on correcting that split within the mind and asking, higher consciousness to help me facilitate this unification within my own mind, um, it nonetheless um, is a journey that requires tenacity, and we do have to kind of seduce that part of who we are that is hidden from us in order to create that union, that sacred union that we imagine that we have in a sexual experience, but the true sacred union is the unification that goes on within our own consciousness and with ourself on a multitude of different levels. So, have you had any dreams lately, Barrett?
Um, that's a good question. I know I've had some. Let's see. I I remember a feeling from one, and it was a feeling of like being on a journey and not getting where I'm going and feeling frustrated. Um, I don't really remember the specifics, um, but I think it can be interpreted pretty easily to be the spiritual journey. There are times where we're moving forward and times where it feels like we're kind of um, just a little like our gears are kind of stuck. We're trying to shift gears and it's not clicking in. One of the things that I find really helpful when I'm feeling this way, when I'm feeling like, oh, am I actually making any headway with this, is the idea in the workbook that I do not perceive my own best interests. That I might have judged some of my biggest steps forward as failures, and I might have um, judged things as victories when they were actually, regressions. Um, which really ties into the idea that we, as much as we can, should let the Holy Spirit judge for us because our perception is limited. We're perceiving things on the basis of our past experiences and from the perspective of an individual, whereas the Holy Spirit has the big picture, the plan of what's in the highest good for everyone together, and is coming from that perspective. So I find that when I really let things go to the Holy Spirit, I don't always get what I want um, from that ego perspective, but I think I do get what I really want. And I need to keep working on that and trying to learn that lesson myself.
Yeah, that is one of the conundrums that we get embroiled in, is that um, the ego is that presence within our conscious mind that is always defining our life experience for us. And a lot of times it's, as you had said, the Course mentions that our greatest achievements are oftentimes things that the ego will interpret to us or for us as being, a hideous crash and burn experience. But the truth is that that is, in reality, the only way we can actually come to identify the ego and its activity is because when the ego is enraged, when it is acting out, um, it becomes very apparent what is going on, and that is the key to actually making our next step into that realization that love is the center of our universe and is the source of our being, and it is, in fact, the life that we are expressing. So when we're in opposition or unaware of our true nature and our true calling, we have this cycle that kicks in of disorientation and illusion and deception and anger and all the other components of that. And again, I think that dreams can be very, not only very revealing, but very much a stimulant to take the next step. When you do have a dream that you're trudging away, climbing a hill, but not making any progress, sometimes it's important for you to actually acknowledge that, to look at that and say, oh, what am I doing? Because sometimes the way that we gain further momentum and start to move forward again is by taking a break, stepping back, and stop trying to stay true to the Course, a little pun there, uh, and to perform in a way that we're blocking ourselves by trying to be diligent in doing what we believe we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective and that insight. I think that kind of hits home. um, and I just kind of wanted to bring up another part of the text that fits in with this conversation about dreams. It's section in chapter 28 called "The Alternate to Dreams of Fear." Jesus says, "What is a sense of sickness but a sense of limitation, of a splitting off and separating from, a gap that is perceived between you and your brother, and what is now seen as health? And so the good is seen to be outside, the evil in, and thus is sickness separating off the self from good and keeping evil in. However, God is the alternate to dreams of fear. Who shares in them can never share in Him. But who withdraws his mind from sharing them is sharing Him. There is no other choice. Except you share it, nothing can exist. And you exist because God shared His will with you, that His creation might create. It is the sharing of the evil dreams of hate and malice, bitterness and death, of sin and suffering and pain and loss that makes them real. Unshared, they are perceived as meaningless. The fear is gone from them because you did not give them your support. So I think what Jesus is saying here is we need to be very conscious of our investment in all of this. There's often a real strong temptation to feel like we're the victim of the fear or the anxiety or the, fill in the blank with what's going on for you. But in fact, it comes from a place of the ego's quote-unquote power. Because as soon as we give in to these sensations, these feelings, we're saying that I'm not in control. But it's kind of a trick that we're playing on ourselves. And by taking responsibility for it, then we can start to say, maybe this isn't what I want anymore. And that's the impetus for the shift. That's where the love starts to come in again. And we start to set aside these feelings that really don't make us feel good.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting how we get caught up in that duality over and over again. That has me thinking back in the direction of another quote from the Course that I've always thought was really very salient and really, just, it's almost like a casual observation that is so profoundly a fact that that we fail to keep it in the forefront of our thinking. The Course says your mind is dividing its allegiance between two kingdoms, and you are totally committed to neither. Your identification with a kingdom is totally beyond question except by you when you are thinking insanely. What you are is not established by your perception and is not influenced by it at all. In other words, this whole body, life, existence that we have created in this realm of separation, we are able to perceive it. We're immersed in it. It's creating cathartic reactions around every corner. We're getting attacked. We're getting, either that or we're attacking somebody else. So, because we are immersed in it to the degree we are, we're oblivious to it. But it says perceived problems in identification at any level are not problems of fact. And that goes back to that idea of there is no order of difficulty in miracles. No matter what's going on in your life, it all stems from one core belief or misbelief that you're carrying around with you, and that is that you have separated yourself from your source. And again, that goes back to the idea that you have created this fracture within the mind, where you created a schism, a canyon between the two aspects of the conscious and subconscious realms. They are problems of understanding, since their presence implies a belief that what you are is up to you to decide. And that's where the whole core of most of our conflict comes from. We have created this false identity, we invest in it, and we keep trying to sustain it, and yet it is in fact something that is not sustainable because it is built on the idea of separation from God and from ourselves. You know, we're not recognizing or not willing to accept the fact that who we truly are is beyond description. It is the most powerful thing that has ever been created, and we have been willing to let go of our place in divine order and the truth of our being, which is the source of our happiness and our harmony and our good health. So it's really fascinating how A Course in Miracles does come across as being a very profound process of self-reflection, self-examination, and ultimately self-healing, because it causes us to go back and re-identify with the true self that we actually are.
Yeah. I mean, for how many words there are in the Course, it's amazing how when you boil it down, it comes to something very simple. And that simpleness is the fact that you are whole. You know, you are already one with love. You are already in that place of heaven. You're just kind of closing your eyes to it. And we just need to keep questioning those false beliefs again and again and again. And eventually they lose all the potency that we've given them. The sharp-edged children's toys are seen for what they are, and we decide we're ready to grow up and stop hurting ourselves. But the challenge, I think, is that we're so invested in it. You know, we're so invested in our individual self. We're so invested in this idea of being an other that as we start to approach these false ideas, we can get really scared. We can get really resistant. All kinds of different things can come up. In fact, while you were talking and reading the Course, Chris, I started to get really sleepy. And that's one thing that can come forward too, is this like, oh man, I just kind of want to go back to sleep.
That is very much the direction the ego leads us, puts us in a coma.
So we just need to be patient with ourselves, but to recognize when we're kind of going into the ego and start to say it's not what I really want. You know, start to realize that it doesn't give me the happiness, it doesn't give me the sense of who I am, and that's what I really want. I really want that experience of wholeness. I kind of think of it sometimes as keeping your eye on the ball. You know, as we go through all of our experiences, we need to keep our eye on the ball. You know, what is it that we really want? Or as Jesus says so many times in the Course, what is it for? What is this experience right now for? What is this challenge that you're going through right now for? Well, it's for healing. It's for remembering that you've never been unwhole. And then that kind of opens things up. That gives the impetus for your decision making. Because when you know where you're going, it's easier to say, this is the choice that I'm going to make right now.
Yeah, and always winds down with that cultivation that's going on by the ego to seduce us into a state of accepting death as the final resolution to all of our problems within life. And the truth is, that is the cornerstone to the temple that the ego has built for itself. Is that, oh, after all is said and done, why don't we just die? Because that's that's the only way to resolve things. We finally arrive at this point where our body is racked with cancer, or this has happened to us, or that has happened to us. We're destitute, and so the only way out is death. And of course, that just means we fall back asleep and come back and do it all over again. So ultimately, the entire journey is based on that idea of taking the option of allowing life to express itself through us so that we do not, in fact, come to a state of cessation. We merely step out of an identity that we thought we wanted, but once we got into it, we discovered, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Yeah, and that story reminds me of what I've heard about the end of Ken Wapnick's life. As he was getting ill, people were concerned for him and concerned that maybe he was dying, and he would say, I'm not dying. And the way that comes through for me is that the true Ken, the true all of us, cannot die. That true light and love that we are doesn't have a beginning. It doesn't have an end. And I think it's that same I that Jesus was speaking from when he said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. It wasn't Jesus who was saying that. It was the I am presence that was speaking through. And that's the truth of who all of us are. And death doesn't really hold a candle to that. It doesn't have any truth when compared to the all-encompassing nature of that inner truth. But as long as we have some investment in it, we're going to believe in it. And then that becomes again our classroom for us to keep questioning and to keep raising these darkened thoughts back into the light, where they can be seen to not really hold any water, and then just set aside. So death, in all its kind of seeming terror and glory, it really is nothing, and that's what we need to start to accept and to kind of begin into our thought system.
Absolutely, yes. To make our conscious choice not to die, but to consciously step out of this body and, as the Course said, be able to lay it down lovingly and to take that next step into the next level of awakening, so that the journey is not just a repetition of, oh, I was born, I lived, and I died over and over and over again. So, and all of this comes full circle. We've got all of the messages coming through from various parts of the mind, and we do have our dream cycles. I think that starting off 2015, it's probably a good practice to start recording some of your dreams, ones that stand out in your mind when you first wake up, and see if there is a continuity. See if there is a theme that is coming up over and over again, and ask for the Holy Spirit to give you some personal guidance as to what the meanings of all of these things actually are. And that being said, I do want to point out that the Miracle Within now has a Facebook page, and if you haven't tracked it down and liked it yet, we would truly appreciate your support, and we'll be using it to post information about upcoming events, etc., etc.
Yeah, and just to give you a preview, Chris and I are having our first live event in Chicago on the north side of the city on February 22nd, which is a Sunday. It's from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. and we'll have more details upcoming on that, and I'm sure we'll be posting them on the Facebook page, and we'll be mentioning it here on the conversations as well.
So anyway, it has been a nice, pleasant-paced dialogue this morning, Barrett, and I know that you are in the final stages of acknowledging your grandmother's transition and, giving her that high five, saying, step it up, get up to that next level, Grandma. That's where you're supposed to hang out and light a torch for the rest of us.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I definitely feel her light and her love encouraging me and encouraging all of us. It feels like it's not an exclusive thing, and I think that that's the true nature of love, is it doesn't leave anyone out. And I think if there's one thought to kind of end on today, it might be that sometimes we feel like we're the ones that are left out from love's embrace, but it wouldn't be all-encompassing if it wasn't including you.
Absolutely. Well, Barrett, you have a fabulous coming week, and we will be chatting in another 7 days.
All right, sounds good. You have a great one too, Chris.
Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.